தான் தெரியுது. டெக்ஸ்ட் புக்ஸ்க்கு எவ்வளோ ஆர்வம் இன்னும் இருக்குன்னு சொல்லி. ஸோ சார் இஸ் கோயிங் டு கிவ் a different angle of his relevance. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible. Walaikum
Okay.
salam.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So, inshallah, we will discuss a few points regarding the relevance of textbooks in education. Before we go into the content, a few disclaimers, a few words of caution, just to make sure that this message is not misread or misunderstood. Number one is that the books have no replacement. No matter how much technology, how much advancement, how much progress humanity is making, how many innovations and inventions come every day, the books as such, they do not have a replacement, and they will never be replaced. Right? So the books will always be relevant. They always cannot be replaced. They can be supplemented. They can be uh, aided or assisted by others. But the role or the books themselves are not something that are replaceable. That is number one. Number two, the scope of our discussion today is not general books. It's not about reference books. It's not about special books on topics. We are talking about textbooks especially. So we are talking about, for example, grade 6 NCRT math book, grade 5 Samachir English book, or grade 8 IGCSE, whatever book. So you're only talking about the textbooks in school education. So let me underline that this discussion is not about books in general. The books, as I said, cannot be replaced. They will always be required, and they are a very important asset or a component in any educational setup. So we're not talking about whether books are required. Definitely, books are required. We're not talking about the fact that books will be replaced and they will become obsolete. Never that has happened in history. And third is the fact that we are only talking about textbooks which are used for subjects within schools and colleges. So we're not talking about the general books here. Okay. With this rider and disclaimer, we have to understand a few things about the generation that is forming up the student community. When we're talking about textbooks, one thing that most of the teachers should be aware, and I believe this learned audience is also aware of, is that the textbooks are more relevant for the students than the teachers. The teacher is not the one who's kept in mind while designing the textbook. For example, a person has done MSc in chemistry, or they have done MA in English, or they have done BA, B.Ed in Tamil. Now the grade 5 textbook of Tamil or the grade 8 book of math is not for the level of the teacher. The teacher knows much more than what is in the textbook. That textbook for grade 8 is designed for the students of grade 8, not for the teachers of grade 8. This, Alhamdulillah, most of you, or in fact, all of you are aware. Why I am saying this is, unfortunately, in our education system, there is a rush of a lot of activities to be done quickly, one after the other, one after the other. The teachers are busy, the students are always occupied. So in this rush of doing so many things at the same time, subconsciously or unintentionally, teachers start taking textbook as their reference material. 8th grade math book வேணுமா மேத்ஸ் பீரியடா ஓகே 8th மேத்ஸ் புக் எடுங்க ரிவைஸ் பண்ணுங்க கிளாஸுக்கு போங்க ஓகே கிரேட் 7ல பிசிக்ஸ் இருக்கா பீரியடுக்கு 10 நிமிஷம் முன்னாடி அந்த பிசிக்ஸ் புக்ஸ் எடுங்க பாருங்க ஒரு வாட்டி ரெஃபர் பண்ணிட்டு போங்க for quick reference what to teach, what is the notes of lesson, what is the scope of today's class, fine. But that should not be your source of information for teaching. They say, like, if the teacher has an ocean, the teacher can give a well of water to the students. If the teacher has a well of water, the teacher can give a bucket of water to the students. If the teacher has a bucket of water, they can give a glass of water to the students. If the teacher has a glass of water, they can give a sip of water to the students. If the teacher have a sip of water, they can give a drop of water to the students. So what you give to your students is just a small subset of what you have. So when you start reducing what you have, or when you are satisfied with lower quantities, then automatically what you're giving and imparting to the student community is a very small subset of that. So if textbook becomes my reference point as a teacher, then it is like having a glass in my hand. I can only give a few sips to the children. Whereas if the textbook remains a reference only for the students, and for me, I have a whole reference set. I have books to refer. I have additional learning resources. I have the internet. I have online resources. I have digital resources. Then, yes, I have an ocean. Probably I can give them a will of water. So the teachers have to constantly revisit this and make sure that their preparation for the classroom is not solely dependent on the textbooks. Yes, what is the chapter? What is the syllabus? What is the topic for this level? What is the boundary of my discussion? That can be decided by the textbook. நான் போய் கிரேட் 8ல கிரேட் 12 கண்டென்ட் நடத்திடக்கூடாது. இந்த பிள்ளைங்களுக்கு புரியாத ஒரு கண்டென்ட் எடுத்துட்டு போய் ரொம்ப அட்வான்ஸ் போய் சொல்லிடக்கூடாது. இல்ல வந்து கிரேட் 8ல போயிட்டு கிரேட் 3 லெவல் கண்டென்ட் நடத்தக்கூடாது அப்படின்ற மாதிரி ஒரு அளவுகோலுக்காக யூ கேன் ரெஃபர் த டெக்ஸ்ட் புக். And that is why if you look at all the books, for example, take physics. There is light, there is mechanics, there is motion, there is speed, there is electricity. In grade 6 book also is there, in grade 7 book also is there, grade 8 book also is there. So no matter how the grades increase, the chapters remain the same. But what is there inside the chapter, the level of details keep on changing. Similarly, in English, grammar is there, prose is there, poetry is there, non-detail is there in all the grades. But what is there inside changes. So the skills within any subject are same across different grades. But what is being taught inside that particular grade is what keeps on incrementally getting added up as the grade or the classroom increases. So one advice for myself and all the esteemed members here is, in the rush of doing so many things, do not forget to make yourself more accustomed and up to date with what is required to teach the children. Do not rely on textbooks. Textbooks are not your references. Textbooks are references for the children. For you, it is only going to define the boundaries. இந்த குரூப்ல இந்த கிரேட்ல என்ன சொல்லி கொடுக்கணும்ன்ற அந்த டாபிக்ஸுக்காக மேபி the textbooks might be the reference point for you, but not the content itself. What you're teaching is much, much more than what is there in the textbook. And as teachers, you would have the practical experience. You teach something and come back and look into the textbook and say, இதெல்லாம் textbookல இல்ல, but இதெல்லாம் சொல்லணும். I have to teach them, even though if it's not in the textbook, right? So that's number one. Number two, understand and recall the fact that the children, they take textbooks in their hand only for two reasons. I'm talking about the average student. I'm not talking about the top 5% of the cream of the class, or I'm not talking about the last 10% of the class. I'm talking about the average. If you split any classroom, you will get three categories of students. One is the top cream level, that A plus level, which is maybe 10% of the class. Then we have the last 10% who don't care about what's going on in the classroom, whose parents probably just send them to school because he's not letting them be peaceful at home or whatever. The children have nothing to do with education. They come physically, sit in the classroom and go. There is another 10%. But the gross, the maximum category is the average category, which is 80% of the class, plus or minus 5%. So we are talking about the average, which consists of the majority of the class. This group touches the textbook only in two cases. Number one, homework assignment பண்றதுக்கு அவங்களால முடியல, இல்ல கொஸ்டின்ஸ் செக் பண்ணணும்னா டெக்ஸ்ட் புக்கை செக் பண்ணுவாங்க. ரெண்டாவது, நாளைக்கு எக்ஸாம்னா இன்னைக்கு டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் எடுப்பாங்க. Only two reasons. Either for completing a task or an assignment that you have told them to finish, or when there is exam tomorrow. Any other time, the chances of a student going home, opening the textbook and reading. For example, today we had learned, for example, geometry. Let me go to the geometry chapter in the maths textbook and try to understand what the teacher was teaching in the class today. Oh, இதுதான் மேம் அப்படி சொன்னாங்களா, இதுதான் சார் அப்படி சொன்னாங்களா, இப்போ எனக்கு நல்லா புரியுது அப்படின்னு டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் பார்த்துலாம் யாரும் they don't cross verify what was learned. அதே ஜாமெட்ரியில ஓகே, do problem 7A in page number 135. 7A, 7B, 7C இந்த மூணுமே ஹோம்ஒர்க் நாளைக்கு பண்ணிட்டு வாங்கன்னா வீட்டுக்கு போவாங்க, ஓபன் பண்ணுவாங்க, அந்த 7A, 7B, 7C கொஸ்டின் பார்ப்பாங்க. அதுவும் அவங்க இன்னைக்கு எழுதின கிளாஸ் நோட்ஸ் கிளாஸ் ஒர்க்லயும் செக் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஓகே, இது என்னால பண்ண முடியுமா, சரி பண்ணி முடிச்சுட்டு 7C முடிஞ்ச உடனே டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் க்ளோஸ் ஆகிரும், பேக்ல போயிடும். This is one reason why students open textbook. Second reason why students open textbook is நாளைக்கு எக்ஸாம் இருக்கு, நாளைக்கு டெஸ்ட் இருக்கு, என்னதான் இருக்குன்னு பார்க்கலாம் அப்படின்ற லெவல்ல people who want to score well in the books, in the exams or the test or whatever, they will open the textbook, try to go through. These are the only two situations in which students touch the textbook. Third, there is no reason. And that is unfortunately the case of majority of the students. But why do students not open textbooks? Why do students not open textbooks? People have done research on that, and they have found out a few reasons why students don't open the textbook. One of the prominent reasons that the students don't open the textbook is they don't find any motivation to do that. Textbook thonda எனக்கு என்ன கிடைக்க போகுது? What is it that I'm going to get in, by referring the textbook? நான் என்ன அப்படி பெருசா கத்துக்க போறேன்? அதான் கிளாஸ்ல சொல்லி கொடுத்துட்டாங்கல்ல, மேம் சொல்லி கொடுத்துட்டாங்கல்ல, சார் சொல்லி கொடுத்துட்டாங்கல்ல, எனக்கு புரிஞ்சிச்சு. நான் எக்ஸாம் நேரத்துல ஒரு வாட்டி ரிவிஷனுக்காக டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் ஓபன் பண்ண போறேன். மற்ற நாள்ல நான் டெக்ஸ்ட் புக்கை எதுக்கு ஓபன் பண்ணும்? Why should I open the textbook on other days? Lack of motivation is one main reason that the people have found out. Second is, what students think is, டெய்லி டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் திறந்தாதான் என்னால நல்ல மார்க் வாங்க முடியும், பாஸ் ஆக முடியும்னு கிடையாது. நான் ஓவர் நைட் படிச்சாலும் என்னால மார்க் ஸ்கோர் பண்ண முடியுது. This is number two. It does not require me to hold on to my textbook throughout the year or throughout the term. Few days before the exam, if I take the textbook in my hand also, I can score well. This confidence. Number three, இந்த டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் இருந்தாதான் எனக்கு இந்த கான்செப்ட் புரியும், இந்த டெக்ஸ்ட் புக்ல படிச்சாதான் எனக்கு இந்த நாலேஜ் கிடைக்கும் அப்படின்ற உத்தரவாதமோ தேவையும் எனக்கு இல்லை. I don't have to learn this only from the textbook. I can watch videos, I can ask ChatGPT, I can go to Google, I can watch Khan's Academy, I can see Chitti projects, whatever. There are so many. There are thousands of online resources where students can learn these contents, maybe in a better manner, in a more simpler manner, in a more easier manner, in a more practical manner. So the reliance on reading a written paragraph of text decreases, the importance decreases. இதுக்கு ஒரு சின்ன உதாரணம் சொல்றேன், just to compare what we were as students in our generation, not to compare, but to understand how the dynamics have changed. இப்போ teachers are here. I want the teachers to be interactive on this thing. I'm going to ask a question. For example, 20 years back, 2000, maybe 1990s, people who went to school, if you were absent on a particular day, if you're absent on a particular day to school, what is your biggest concern? What is the biggest worry that we had? Teachers, நீங்க ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸா இருக்கும்போது என்ன நடந்துச்சு கொஞ்சம் சொல்லுங்க பார்ப்போம். People who went to school in the early 2000s, maybe late 1990s, what was your biggest concern when you had to be absent from school one day? Missed the teacher's class, very good. Okay. Where? நமக்கு ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு பாரம் ஒன்று இருக்கும். There is one big thing that we had to do. What was that? அன்னைக்கு 8 பீரியட்ஸ்னா அந்த 8 பீரியட்ஸோட கிளாஸ் ஒர்க் எடுத்து நேத்து என்ன நடத்துனாங்கன்னு உட்கார்ந்து காப்பி அடிக்கணும். கரெக்டா? We used to ask the other children who were present on that day. இன்னைக்கு என்ன நடத்துனாங்க? What did the teacher says? Mathல என்ன நடத்துனாங்க? English என்ன நடத்துனாங்க? We used to get their notebooks and sit down and copy what was missed in the class yesterday. அது ஒரு கட்டாயமா நம்ம அது பண்ணுவோம். அடுத்த நாள் காலைல பிரேக்ல காலைல ஸ்கூலுக்கு சீக்கிரமா போயிடுவோம். இல்ல இன்டர்வல் பிரேக்ல ஒன்றும் சாப்பிடாம, லஞ்ச் பிரேக்ல ஒன்றும் சாப்பிடாம, லஞ்ச் எல்லாம் ஸ்கிப் பண்ணி we used to copy that classwork. We used to copy that classwork and it was something that was on our head until we finished it. இப்போ உள்ள சைல்ட், இப்போ உள்ள ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ஒரு நாள் கிளாஸ் மிஸ் பண்ணா there is no concern about this. டீச்சரே நோட்ஸ் இன்கம்ப்ளீட் இருக்கு, எழுதுப்பா எழுதுப்பா எழுதுப்பான்னு ஃபோர்ஸ் பண்ணி 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 எழுதுனா உண்டு. Otherwise, the child does not feel he has missed anything at all. The child does not feel the need to copy anything from his neighbor or from his classmate. அவங்க இது நடத்துறாங்களா? ஓகே ஃபைன், எக்ஸாம் வரும்போது பார்த்துப்போம். எல்லா 19ஓட 20 சேர்த்து இது படிச்சிருவோம், இதுவும் ரிவைஸ் பண்ணிப்போம். மற்றவங்களோட நோட் புக் காப்பி பண்ணிடுவோம். இல்லை வாட்ஸ்அப்ல அமுச்சு விட்டுரு, வாட்ஸ்அப்ல பார்த்து படிச்சுக்கிறேன். இல்லை என்ன டாபிக்னு சொல்லி நானே படிச்சுக்கிறேன். ரைட்? ஸோ தே திங்க் தட் த textbooks are no longer the only source of information. Yes, homework is yet another thing. Classwork mundu homework kuda kavala. So the textbooks are no longer the only source of information for the students. So they believe that if I miss the textbook, if I don't open the textbook, it does not mean that I don't get that information from alternate avenues. So that way the students don't feel a need to open the textbooks. Number 4, students don't find the textbooks engaging enough. We are in the time period of AI and videos and social media, and the attention span is decreasing day by day exponentially. இப்போ ஒரு ரீல், இன்ஸ்டாகிராம்ல ஒரு ரீலோ, ஒரு யூடியூப்ல ஒரு ஷார்ட்டோ 30 செகண்ட்ஸ், அந்த 30 செகண்ட்ஸ் கூட முழுசா பாக்குறதுக்கு they don't have the patience. அதை ஸ்க்ரால் பண்ணிட்டே போறாங்க. 10 நிமிஷம், 5 செகண்ட்ஸ், 4 செகண்ட்ஸ்ல உங்களால அதை ரிலேட் பண்ண முடியலன்னா நெக்ஸ்ட் 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 நெக்ஸ்ட். ஸோ த அட்டென்ஷன் ஸ்பேன் இஸ் நாட் ஈவன் தேர் ஃபார் 30 செகண்ட்ஸ். அவங்கள போயிட்டு நம்ம ஒரு 1 hour ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ணி இந்த ஃபுல் சாப்டர் 7 pages டாப் டு பாட்டம் படிங்கன்னு சொன்னா they are not ready for it. They are not on board with that idea of sitting and reading one way content. What is written, I have to read one way for so many minutes continuously. They are not on board with the idea. To add to that, most of the textbooks that we have, unfortunately, in the school are dry. Dry not in the content, dry in the way they are presented. பெரிய பெரிய பேராகிராஃபா போட்டு பிளாக் அண்ட் ஒயிட்ல சின்ன சின்ன எழுத்துல ஃபார்மல் ஃபாண்ட்ல, they don't find it engaging enough for them to go back to that. And fifth reason that they have found out when it comes to the textbooks is these textbooks are talking about some Stone Age. According to them, these textbooks are talking about something that happened 10 years back, 15 years back. இன்னைக்குள்ள advancements are not there in these textbooks. The textbooks are static. The textbooks are static in their content and not, and most of the cases, they don't reflect what is happening today in the world. Today, இன்னைக்கு என்ன நடக்குதோ அது நம்ம டெக்ஸ்ட் புக்ல வர்றதுக்கு இன்னொரு 5 வருஷம் ஆகும். Because textbooks are not revised every year. Textbooks contents are revised every 5 years, maximum 3 years, not less than that. So what happens is by the time the textbook captures that, the relevance is lost. For example, 2021, 22, we had this COVID pandemic. This COVID pandemic. There are so many lessons from the COVID pandemic academically. We have health-wise, medical learnings. We had scientific learnings. We had academic learnings. We had health and fitness. We had so many learnings from the COVID pandemic. இது ப்ராபப்ளி ஒரு நெக்ஸ்ட் எடிஷன் 2027 2026ல வந்து ஒரு டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் ரிவைஸ் பண்ணும்போது மேபி தெர் மைட் பி அ சாப்டர் ஆன் பேண்டமிக்ஸ், ஹவு டு டீல் வித் பேண்டமிக்ஸ். அதுக்குள்ள கோவிட் என்னன்னு எல்லாருக்கும் மறந்து போயிடும். இப்போவே நிறைய பேர் மறந்து போச்சு. ஸோ பை த டைம் திஸ் ஃபைண்ட்ஸ் அ பிளேஸ் இன் அவர் learning content, it loses relevance. Things are changing so fast in the environment, in what is around us, that the children are not able to connect it with the real world, with their what is happening today contemporarily. And what the children feel is this is talking about something that happened long back, or this is not relevant as of today. I am not able to relate this content to the daily life today. So these are some of the reasons why the kids or the students, they feel that going to the textbook is not as rewarding as going to websites and YouTube, because YouTube is going to talk about what's happening today. Videos are going to tell about the contemporary things. Videos are going to show you what has happened yesterday, today, day before yesterday. So there is a recent there's a connection between what's happening today versus what they're showing. So the relevance part is more observed in dynamic content, which is there in multimedia and internet, rather than the static content that is there in the textbooks. So these are the reasons why students do not feel a need to go to the textbooks. Right or wrong, I leave it for the decision of the teachers here. But what can we do? Okay, we have defined the problem statement. Quickly, let us see what we can do as teachers to get the children back to the textbooks. Yes, children need to read textbooks. Children need to read textbooks. But how can we make that happen? Number one, let textbooks not be the only place we ask them to go to. Let us encourage a more hybrid learning environment. Can we give something as a supplement along with textbooks? Along with textbooks, look at this digital resource, look at this online resource, look at this video, and find which part of your textbook talks about this particular principle. இந்த எக்ஸ்பெரிமெண்ட் பண்றான்ல இந்த யூடியூப்ல, இந்த எக்ஸ்பெரிமெண்டோட பேசிஸ் உங்களுடைய பிசிக்ஸ் புக்ல எந்த சாப்டர்ல இருக்குது. ஸோ ட்ரை டு ரிலேட் டைனமிக் ஆன்லைன் கண்டென்ட் வித் ஸ்டாட்டிக் கண்டென்ட் இன் த டெக்ஸ்ட் புக். தட் வே they will be able to correlate between what they see on the digital media versus what is there inside. Number two, like we always say, flipped classroom method. Ask them to prepare something before the classroom, or look for experiments or practice activity before you actually teach the concept, so that they learn by doing rather than learn by reading. And you all know about the various types of learners, the work method or the work method, where they are video learners, audio learners, readers, and people who are kinesthetic. So based on the different learner styles or whatever is dominant in each learner, make sure that you are engaging them in a preparation before the class, or some sort of a mental preparation of what are the topics to be covered, what they can do as an activity to understand it, with little of theory and more of practice. Also, let us try to give them things in snippets, because the attention span, as I said, is decreasing. So how do we make sure that they are back to focus on the classroom? This is called disruptive learning. Let us give them those varied formats. Sometimes text, sometimes diagram, sometimes audio, sometimes play a video, sometimes give them an activity or group study, or create groups, create debates, create interactions, create group work, assignments within the classroom, so that they are not fed up with a monotonous learning method or a monotonous setup, because they're not simply used to do it. And finally, make sure that they are rewarded not in terms of physical or monetary rewards, but they are the Gen Z, especially the Gen Z, is something that craves for immediate recognition, and they cannot survive without immediate recognition. இப்போ ஒர்க் ஃபோர்ஸ்ல வந்து ஜாயின் பண்ற ஃப்ரெஷர்ஸ் எப்படின்னா, நேத்து ஒர்க் பண்ணாங்கன்னா இன்னைக்கு வந்து we have to appreciate them. நேத்து நைட் நீங்க நல்லா ஒர்க் பண்ணீங்க அப்படின்ட்டு. They don't even wait for 1 week, 1 month and all. Whatever they do, they want immediate acknowledgement of the work done. So that is something that they crave for. That is a generational symptom. Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the people who are born after 2010, 2015, they have this expectation of immediate acknowledgement. They can't wait. Okay, one year annual report. In the past year, you did this. அப்படிலாம் கிடையாது. நேத்து பண்ணாங்கன்னா இன்னைக்கு they expect acknowledgement. So acknowledge and appreciate the good work, and make sure that there is the reward and recognition system in place to appreciate and entertain their good activities, so that they get emotionally bounded to the textbooks. They see a need to go back, and they feel the motivation to go back to the textbooks, so that they can learn the right things and be in touch with the books. As it is, reading books has become almost obsolete. Nobody reads books these days. So it is very important to revive that, but with a purpose and with a motivation, so that students stick on to this habit of learning and benefit from the books as they should be. This is what I had to share today. Inshallah, we will see more in further sessions. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. And with this, the program comes to an end. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.